This happened about a year ago, and my longtime Twitter peeps may remember it because, of course, almost getting run over by a car is something you're obligated to live tweet. So one afternoon, after a long day of being a workaholic shut-in, I decided to stop off at my local grocery store. Now those that know me know that I'm very creepy. I'm very observant. I like to people watch sometimes. It's usually to get ideas for characters and stories. And this particular day, as I was walking in the grocery store, I came across a remarkable looking gentleman. This is important to the story, trust me. He was tall, round, wore rectangular glasses, was kinda thinning up top, and had a very distinct broom mustache. For the animation nerds out there, kinda like Eric Goldberg, only taller and less cuddly. I made a small mental note about him and carried on with my shopping. When I was done, I paid and walked my basket out the front doors. So this parking lot was set up like most grocery store parking lots, rows of spaces with handicap spaces in the front. I started walking down my row to get to my car when I noticed a very nice Mustang sitting in the first handicap spot. I'm not a car person, but this was one of those cars that anybody would stop and admire. It was black, it had red stripes going down the center. Very nice. But a nice car does not make a nice person. I started walking by this Mustang, keeping my distance at about 8 feet. And there was no indication that anybody was in this car. The lights weren't on, the engine wasn't running, nothing. And I couldn't see in there because all the windows were blacked out. I was about 3/4 the way behind this car when I heard it. And with reckless abandon, this car shot out of the parking spot heading right for me. I shoved my basket and dove out of the way, and I'm talking like an inch this guy missed me by. I felt the wind of it go by. I fell forward and caught myself hard on that basket. The force of the fall was enough to rip my lace leggings right at the knees. You don't believe me? Here's a picture. Those were mildly expensive. Oh, and the driver also could have killed me, or at least seriously maimed me. I realized I probably should have just ditched the basket and made a run for it, but it all happened so fast that my brain could only think, move perpendicular to this oncoming force. If the basket's in the way, take it with you. Just move! Ah! So I narrowly dodged the car and picked myself back up, but what was so funny was how scatterbrained confused I was. What do I do about this? Was it my fault? No, definitely his fault. He should apologize. But do I just walk away? Let it go? Was it an accident? Did he do it on purpose? Is he an assassin? Do I express my outrage with an appropriate lewd hand gesture? But I was in such a state of shock that I just kept walking. I made it to my car, still coming down from that adrenaline high, when suddenly the Mustang pulled up behind me and stopped. The window rolled down, and guess who it was? Broomstache Man! He said, "Hey, I didn't mean to scare you. I just didn't see you." Okay, first off, he said it in such a tone that it sounded like he was blaming me. And second, you didn't see me? Really? Listen, I know I'm not particularly tall, but I'm not an 8-year-old. Well, mentally the jury's out on that one, but I am a cool 5'6", thank you very much. You can see me. Clearly proven by the fact that you saw that you almost hit me, otherwise you wouldn't have said anything. I was still so shaken and also a little bit angry by this point that all I could say was, okay. Alright. Bye. And he raced off. Cad. You just wait until I tweet about this. But oh, frabjous day, Kalu Kalay, the story does not end there. It gets better. I was on my way home, still trying to process all that had happened, and, oh dear viewers, guess who I saw on the side of the road pulled over by the police? Broomstache! Oh! The popo got your number, bro. Oh Lord, I do believe I'm coming down with a case of justice. That is what you get. That is what you get, homeboy! Wait a minute. Where are my groceries? Oh, hello, my geeks and peeps, my explainers and entertainers, my little oodle-lollies. Rebecca Parham here. So, did you know I was a daycare kid? Probably not, because I've never mentioned it before. Makes sense, given that mom and dad were both working parents, and leaving one's infant at home alone is generally considered problematic. Now, I know it might be hard to believe, but I haven't always been the pinnacle of refinement and maturity that you see before you today. No. As a kid, I was a bit of a rascal. For example, the box story. Now at this daycare we had a big playroom, and in this playroom there was a dark little alcove where custodial stuff and equipment was kept all the time, and one morning during playtime I noticed someone had left a large box there. Big enough for a child to hide behind. Now there's a concept that I call kid logic, and it's basically just a name for that randomness that kids possess, or the absurdity that is their reasoning sometimes. For example, when I saw that box, that's when my kid logic kicked in, and I said,
I'm gonna hide behind that box for as long as possible and see what happens. This is a great idea.
So when the adults weren't looking, I slunk behind the box and crouched down, hiding myself entirely. I must have stayed there for half an hour before playtime ended, and they ushered all the kids away to a different room for a new activity. And funny enough, the adults were none the wiser I was gone.
I've beat the system.
Now this is what gets me. It took an hour of me hiding before an adult came back to the room and visibly began looking around for something. Couldn't imagine what it might be.
Now where did I leave that small child? Must be around here someplace.
I peeked my head up over the edge of the box to watch, but that proved to be my undoing. I was spotted!
I've been compromised!
I got in big trouble for that, of course. I was clearly not good at getting away with things when I was a kid, as you'll see in the next story. Now, one time at this daycare, they brought in a whiteboard, and you were only allowed to draw on it with adult supervision.
Okay, I won't draw on the board.
Instead, I stole a green dry erase marker when no one was looking and proceeded to decorate my face. Hey, listen, I didn't break the rules. They specifically said don't draw on the board. They said nothing about my face. I put the marker back and walked away, but was promptly spotted by an adult. Becca, did you do this to yourself?
No.
Did somebody do this to you?
Yes.
Who did it? Well, sheesh, I hadn't thought I had that far. And I honestly didn't even think to blame another kid. Instead, that good old kid logic kicked in, and I came up with the most foolproof story that was sure to get my hide out of trouble.
I was minding my own business looking for something to play with, and then the markers came over and marked on my face. Nailed it.
I will never understand how that daycare worker kept a straight face, but off to timeout I went.
So, what are you in for? Disrupting the status quo? Whoa, I stuck gum up my nose.
Something I haven't mentioned yet is that my sister Rachel also went to this daycare, and because she's 2 years older than me, she got to be in the big kids program called the Superstars. And I was so jealous that I took to calling them the Stupid Stars. Extra crispy on that burn there, little Becca. But one thing that will always be a significant memory to me is the day I discovered that the Superstars had a Nintendo. Better yet, they had Super Mario Bros. And that, my little oodle-ollies, was the first time I ever saw a console video game. I thought I was looking at magic. And that became the only thing I ever wanted to do at playtime, was go over to the big kid area and watch them play Super Mario Bros. Don't you dare tell me that gamers aren't real entertainers. I was watching people play video games long before the Appliers and Septiceyes and D-Pies of the world made it a thing. But when playtime was over, the daycare staff had to pry me away, kicking and screaming from that TV set. One day, however, I came up with a brilliant idea. When they pulled me away from the big kids corner and sat me down with the other little kids, I proceeded to scream and cry that I miss my big sister, and nothing was gonna console me except being allowed to be with her in the big kid area. I guess the adults didn't know what else to do, so they actually let me go back over.
Holy Crayola, that actually worked.
Sure enough, I made a beeline for the Nintendo. Screw you, sis, I got video games to observe. It didn't take long for an adult to catch on, and I was eventually pulled away again. When I tried the same shtick, they gently said, Becca, you say you miss your sister, but every time you go over there, you just watch them play video games. Okay, maybe they had me there. Not gonna lie, that's a pretty solid accusation.
All right, grown-up, I'll concede to you this time. But one day, I'll be grown-up, and I'll watch all the video games I want.
Don't you mean play them?
No.
Now I've saved the best story for last. Even when I started kindergarten, there was no escaping this daycare, because one of the services they provided was picking up children from my elementary school and taking them back to the daycare where the parents could pick them up later. So every day I didn't get picked up by a parent or get on a normal yellow school bus, I waited for a big white van. That sounds rather nefarious now that I say it out loud. But yeah, Rachel and I would wait for the van, pile in with the other kids, and go wait to get picked up at the daycare. And this was a routine my kindergarten teacher knew. She was a very good teacher and kept track of the way each of her students were supposed to go home. So she would make sure I got in that van. Well, I was getting a little bored of the routine. And here's good old kid logic again, because many of my classmates would get to walk home. And for some reason, I decided that was the cool thing to do. I aspired to walk home. But that wasn't gonna happen with Miss Responsibility Pants botching my whole operation. So like the little devil I was, I waited until we had a substitute teacher. Alright, here's your evil genius learner's permit, kiddo. When school ended that day, instead of getting into the daycare van, I hid behind a brick pillar and waited for the van to leave without me. Funny how my sister never said anything. She must have been like, alright, I guess she died. As soon as the van left, I headed off on foot. My house was within walking distance, only about a mile away, but I began to think as I walked that no one was actually going to be at the house, and I had no way of getting inside. Probably should have thought of that before. So instead of walking home, I made the executive decision to walk to the daycare instead. Now, I knew what I was doing was against the rules, because every single time I saw a white vehicle of any sort coming in the distance, I would duck behind a tree or bush as fast as I could. When I was so close that I could see the daycare up ahead, I noticed what was most definitely a white van approaching, and the only tree immediately available was thinner than me. So not only was this tree already insufficient at hiding me, but when I jumped behind it, I didn't think to put the tree between me and the line of sight of the van. So when the daycare staff approached, this is what they saw. I'm revoking that evil genius learner's permit. They stopped the van, made me get inside, and guess who I found in the back seat? The snitch that ratted me out. My own sister.
How could you? We were brothers, you and I. Wait.
The theater. What's happened to the theater?
It hasn't gone anywhere and it probably never will. The apocalypse could happen and all that would be left is a bunch of cockroaches and a 10-person acting troupe performing Cats to said cockroaches. You remember me talking about this lady? This mentally unstable theater teacher that clawed her way up from hell? Well, guess what? I ain't done exploiting the memory of her yet. This is what you get for traumatizing me in my vulnerable formative years, Snakeface. Whether I like to admit it or not, I did learn some things about theater from Medusa. Some good, some bad, and some random things that I swear she made up because I have not found any evidence of them existing anywhere else. I put forth the following to you, dear explainers. The 4 character spheres. Vacant head sphere, intellectual head sphere, heart sphere, and will sphere. With their powers combined, they make up a school of magic and constantly flex on each other. Am I reading the right notes here? For real though, according to my theater teacher, all people and characters fall under one of these 4 categories based entirely on body language. She sold this as a legit way of character acting. Yeah, so I'm cashing in on this lady's weird theories and putting the question out to you. Which character sphere are you? Click the link to take our quiz. Don't, there's no link. Alright, let's begin. Excuse me, where did I put that reel? Here we are.
The differences between the spheres are based entirely on 4 types of body language: the walk, eye contact, sitting, and hand gestures.
See if any of these feel familiar. We'll start with the twins, vacant head sphere and intellectual head sphere. Now, I remember my teacher was adamant we understood that these spheres have nothing to do with intelligence. A character could be a vacant head sphere and still be a genius. And I'm not just saying that because some of these traits apply to me. Now then, when a vacant head sphere walks, they tend to lead with their head. They also tend to walk with a purpose, even if they don't have anywhere to be. Walking, gotta walk, gotta get there. Where is there? I don't remember. Wait! I'm just taking a stroll through the park. Gotta walk. They also tend to have a bounce in their step, so if they're wearing a ponytail, that thing swings like a 1930s big band. My references are not dated, they'll get it, they've all played Cuphead. Next up is eye contact, specifically while talking to someone. Vacant head spheres are a little funny this way. They have the ability to hold eye contact, but they just don't wanna. They're still listening, their brain is just multitasking.
Right, so the surprise party for Emily is on Saturday. Don't tell Emily. There's a cat over there. I bet Emily would like a cat. I should steal that cat.
When vacant head spheres sit, they tend to sit on the very edge of the seat. And when it comes to hand gestures, vacant head spheres use their hands when talking a lot. It's like their mouth is directly connected to their hands. If you kidnap a vacant head sphere and want to shut them up, just tie their hands to the floor. This is also one of those traits that is certified Rebecca. So I guess you know how to kidnap me now? Now, let's move on to the vacant head sphere's twin sibling, the intellectual head sphere. But they're the type of twins that have like some similar features but are in actuality entirely different people. Again, this has nothing to do with intelligence. An intellectual head sphere could technically be a dum-dum, but honestly I've never come across anyone who acted this way that wasn't a big ol' brainy nerd about something. Much like their twin, intellectual head spheres will sit on the very edge of their seat and also lead with their head when they walk, minus the ponytail swinging bounce of course. But in direct contrast to their boisterous sibling, when you start to speak to an intellectual head sphere, they must immediately stop what they are doing and very intently stare directly at you while you talk, to an almost intimidating degree. Hey, so you got a moment? I just wanted to ask about that new filing system that Keith... You know what? I'm just gonna go ask Keith. Intellectual head spheres like doing very small things with their hands while talking or thinking, like fiddling with a pen or a coin, twiddling their thumbs, and their gestures are very small and understated. It just feels like this character sphere is the embodiment of the term mild-mannered, the librarian of the bunch. Stick 'em in an apartment with a vacant head sphere and you've got a mildly interesting sitcom on your hands. We'll be right back to Vacantly Intellectual after these messages. Moving on, you have the heart sphere, a favorite of mine, probably because I share the most traits with this one. This sphere is basically Miss Bianca from the Rescuers movies. First of all, heart spheres have very good posture when they walk because they lead with their chest. Guess you could say they follow their hearts? Aha, 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 aha. Now when a heart sphere is talking to you, they maintain eye contact very well. But the key is their eyes react very empathetically with whatever it is you're saying, whether it's happy, sad, angry, what have you. You never second guess if a heart sphere is actually listening to you. Wow, the heart sphere is big on empathy. It's like a villain being named Reginald McEvilman. When it comes to a heart sphere's hand gestures, everything is centered around the heart, to a literal degree. They touch their chests a lot, that's what I'm saying. Like putting their hand to their heart, playing with their necklaces or their shirt collars, it could be one of these numbers. I may move my hands a lot when I'm talking, but boy howdy, when I am listening or thinking, no necklace is safe. Oh, to those of you watching who think this trait sounds familiar and you could possibly be a heart sphere, here's a little secret for you. Fidget necklaces are an actual thing that you can buy. This sphere is also the only sphere that sits in a chair like a normal person. They don't sit on the edge, their butt is perfectly where it needs to be, taking up the correct amount of space for a humanoid. None of this, none of this, none of this, just butt satisfyingly placed in chair. Excellent form, darling. Now we get to the will sphere. I used to think of this one as the cowboy sphere until I got corrected the other day. To start off, when a will sphere walks, they lead with their hips. They kind of have that cowboy swagger about them. I described this to a friend of mine recently, and he said, "Oh, like supermodels." Yeah, that checks out. Now I think of this as the strut sphere. The sphere of strut. The stratosphere! Okay, so will spheres don't really use their hands all that much when talking. They only gesture once or twice, but when they do, you gotta step back because it's always something big. Like they're laughing at something funny and they slap the table, or it's a get out of here hand gesture, or big finger guns. They expend all their gesture points in one go. They're like Saiyans, they start off with their strongest attack. I don't know if this is intentional, but will spheres will maintain eye contact with you while talking like they're trying to assert dominance. This is another reason why I used to call them the cowboy sphere, because they stare at you like it's high noon and one of you is about to cash in your warranty. Supermodels do it too. That catwalk stare looks like you murdered their family and now they're gonna remove your vital organs through your ears. Legend says that when a will sphere and an intellectual head sphere have a staring competition, it never ends. Ever. And last but not least, if you have ever known someone in your life that regularly claims an entire couch for themselves, they were probably a will sphere. They don't just sit in the seat, they take up the seat. Just think of Julian sitting in Jenna's terrible jean chair. Heart sphere, will sphere, heart sphere,
Will sphere. The person could be 4'10", 105 pounds, and somehow they can magically take up every inch of a sofa. Hello, my name is Rebecca. I am a couch stealer. No, I will not move my legs so you can sit down. I claim this furniture in the name of Param. You can sit in the lava. As you can probably tell just by the fact that I have already claimed traits from every single one of these spheres, not everyone perfectly fits into one of these categories, and my theater teacher's logic was incredibly flawed. It's like humans are complex or something. Obviously, this is all just for the yucks, just some good old-fashioned Tommy rot what. Don't take any of it too seriously. But go ahead and let me know in the comments below if you actually do fit perfectly into one of these spheres, or if you're a big old mishmash like me. And subscribe while you're at it. I see all of you watching without subscribing, especially you, Blake. Thank you so much for tuning in, but now I gotta tune out. Bye!
You know those weird people that are like super into Disney parks and they buy an annual pass every year and they have all of the theme park collectibles and... Yeah, that's me. My family's actually part of the Disney Vacation Club, so that's even worse. Point is, I have spent a lot of time in Disney parks. In fact, my family just came back from a vacation there in October of 2016. We were there for the Food and Wine Festival, and if you haven't done that, you really should. Highly recommend. So much fun and delicious food. But anyways, my family and I were headed over to Epcot, and at the entrance of every single Disney park is a security bag check. And what that basically means is there's a row of tables, and at the end of each table is a security guard, and the security guard opens your bag, they look inside, and then they send you on your way. That's it. It's pretty straightforward, and they have been doing it for years. I'm gonna reiterate that I'm an old Disney pro. If I'm gonna carry a bag, it is small, and I only carry the essentials. But that particular day, one of the essentials was, well, an item of delicate nature, secured by a small drawstring bag. Now, I'm not going into details because I can't really gauge the sensitivity of my audience. I know a lot of you are dudes, so that makes this worse. But if you really want to know more about what was in that bag, just pause the video and Google search menstrual cup. Shorthand explanation, it's a period thing. You're big boys, you can handle it. So I got up to the front of this security line, and the security guard checking bags is a young fella, my age, maybe younger. He took my bag, opened it up, and reached for the front pocket. Let me remind you, for years I have watched Disney security guards open my bag, look inside, and that's it. But to my dismay, this young security guard reached into the front pocket of my bag and pulled out my hairbrush. My first thought was, that's a little strange. Well, maybe he just couldn't tell what it was. He put it back, reached into the second pocket, and pulled out my wallet. Wait, what is he doing? Is he actually going to pull out and show everybody in this line everything in my bag? Wait! But before I could stop him or say anything, he had put back my wallet and reached into the third pocket. The pocket that contained my little drawstring bag. Within a moment, this young, unknowing security guard had a very sensitive item in his hand. And since he had already proven himself the curious type, one could hardly blame me for what I did. In my shock, I blurted out without really thinking, "You don't want to open that bag!" Tell me something. In a high-stress security check situation, say, like at the airport, do you ever think it's a good thing for a security guard to hear the words, "You don't want to open that bag"? This young security guard gave me a deer in the headlights look like I have never seen before in my life. I mean, for all he knew, this young woman standing across from him was trying to harbor in a small explosive device. For goodness sake, she's giving him a look of terror like she had been caught. He looked at the bag in his hand and very subtly squeezed it. I could see the color drain from his cheeks. He looked to me, and after a moment, he said, "I don't think I want to open this bag." He put it back and pushed the purse towards me. Have a magical day, ma'am. Yeah, you too, buddy. Jerk. I'd wash that hand if I were you. Moral of the story, keep your grimy mitts out of my purse. Oh, hello, my geeks and peeps, my explainers, and blah blah blah. Listen here.
If you know that intro, chances are you know who I am. And if you don't, hi, I'm Rebecca. Thank you kindly for noticing I don't have a mouth. Jumped right out of the inkwell without it. Anyways, back to my original point. If you know me, there's a chance you may one day be gallivanting about in the world post-pandemic and happen to spy a wild Becca in her natural habitat. And if that glorious day comes, I assure you, my little oodle-ollies, that it is quite okay to approach. I shall not maul you to death. Probably. Something that you'll hear a lot from Storytime animators is that they don't know why people get excited or overwhelmed meeting them. Oh, please don't cry. I'm just a weirdo who spends way too much time in front of a computer screen and doesn't shower nearly as much as I should. That's it. That's the reality of our situations. The day-to-day of what we do is not glamorous. Actually, strike that. I'll tell you the one time that this job does feel glamorous. Conventions, where sponsors give us a metric ton of free stuff, and when we step on a stage, everybody goes, bah! But even then, you're working really hard at these events. You're sweaty and exhausted and your feet hurt because you just had to wear the sparkly red high heels, didn't you, Dorothy? Click them together, maybe you'll get some Dr. Scholl's, you fashionista wannabe. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh, right, meeting all of you. Sit down, I got funny stories. About 3-ish years ago, I was at the grocery store. Nothing particularly important about this trip, I was just getting my things. I got in line for the checkout and there was a high school kid and his mom in front of me. Big, tall, football player kind of guy. Now, when I'm at a convention or on the rare occasion appearing on camera for a video, I tend to doll myself up a bit. But that day, I was in normal Becca mode. No makeup, my hair was all frizzy, I was wearing my glasses. Like that would help disguise me.
No one will suspect a thing if I wear my Clark Kent glasses.
But even still, sometimes people won't realize who I am because I'm not all pretty-fied. Case in point, while I was standing there in line, I noticed the high school guy started to stare at me for a long time. Wheels definitely turning in his head. He pulled out his phone, searched for something, and then began to look between me and his phone a few times. That's a fun feeling, knowing you're being stared at but not wanting to awkwardly return eye contact, so you do that quick glance thing over and over. The guy's mother finished paying and began wheeling her basket away, yelling at him to get the lead out, we're going. He looked back at me rather frantically and said, are you Rebecca Parham? Yes? Picture? Sure? Click! And he was out the door. The cashier girl looked at me and said, what the hell was that about? He recognized me from my YouTube channel. Whatever, nerd. Speaking of stores, a little girl once followed me around the pharmacy section of Target. Every time I stopped in an aisle and looked at something, she'd stand 6 feet from me and pretend she was looking at the shelves too. I know she was pretending because little girls are not usually that fascinated with Rogaine. She side-eye glanced at me a lot, but never did say anything to me. I wasn't wearing makeup that day either and was probably very sleep-deprived, so I must have looked rather terrifying. Resting witch face and all.
Yes, come closer, little girl. Would you like a selfie? I promise it won't steal your soul.
I very often get surprised by the types of people who know who I am. They pop up in every situation too. See, I am more often than not approached by young people. Kids, teens, early college, you get it. So when my mom and I were in the airport and we walked up to our gate, I was rather surprised when a man traveling alone in his 40s came up to me and said, "Excuse me, but are you Rebecca Parham?" I was not ready for that. My brain fully expected this man to say, "Excuse me, is this the flight to London?" or some other old person thing like, "Do you remember that show Thundercats?" He was a nice guy and told me that he watched my videos with his daughter. Ah, your child forces you to watch me. Now that makes sense. Well, fair play to you, dedicated parental unit. There was this one time, back in 2019, I was in downtown San Antonio for San Japan, a big old Weeb Fest anime convention. I was there to sing at a concert with fellow YouTubers Caleb Hiles, Anna Pantsu, and CG5. The night before the convention started, we all went to dinner, and when we were done, we called an Uber to get back to the hotel. I was in the front seat and Caleb was in the back seat directly behind me. We must have been talking about something very interesting because I had turned towards my window to better speak to him over my shoulder. The car stopped at a red light, and while we were sitting there, some movement outside of my window caught my eye. I looked up, and this is what I saw in the Suburban next to me. Funny enough, there was one time my face wasn't even the thing getting recognized. About 3 years ago, I was at Disney World with my family, and on this particular day we were at Epcot. David and I were waiting outside the bathrooms for Mom and Rachel when a girl walked by and noticed that David was wearing an Aperture Laboratories t-shirt. The nerd. She stopped and said,
Hey, I really like your t-shirt.
I couldn't help but notice that the girl was wearing a Spirited Away shirt, so I said, Oh, and look, you're wearing Hayao Miyazaki. You really ought to go over to the Japan pavilion here. They have all sorts of fun anime and manga stuff. I was rather satisfied with my perfectly executed social interaction there. Ha, my fellow geeks are so easy to talk to. But then I noticed how she was looking at me. She was staring very intently and squinting her eyes in suspicion. Immediately, I thought I had said something stupid.
Oh god, I insulted her. I assumed she liked anime. I mispronounced Hayao Miyazaki. I did something. I must have.
She just kept staring at me, but then said,
You sound familiar.
Hello, my geeks and peeps,
My explainers and entertainers, my little oodle-ollies, Rebecca Pound here.
And that was all she needed to hear. Who needs to stand in line to take a picture with a princess? You got a moderately popular YouTuber over here. But I'll never forget the only reason I got recognized that day was because of David's nerdy shirt. You win this one, brother. And speaking of nerdy shirts, we have one of those sweet new Witch of the Wood shirts in the shop for ya. We call this one the Garden Witch shirt. Good for ladies, gents, and all other corporeal beings. Get 'em while they're hot, baby cakes. Link in the description below. Alright, I think I'm just about out of time for this video. Now don't forget, explainers and entertainers, if you see this face poking about in the post-pandemic outside world, you shan't be afraid to introduce yourselves. It warms my heart to see your blessed little faces and subsequently squeeze them. Have a good day, my little oodle-ollies. Thank you so much for tuning in, but now I gotta tune out. Bye! I live in Texas, and in Texas there's an abundance of wildlife, which means there's an abundance of roadkill, which means there's an abundance of buzzards. Abundance. So about the time that I had graduated high school, one day my mom and I were driving down the highway, and just ahead of us on the median strip was something that you see a lot in my area. A deer carcass and a buzzard feeding on it. Now when you're young and you're trying to learn how to drive in my neck of the woods, they always say, watch the buzzards on the side of the road, because they're bad flyers and they especially have trouble taking off from the ground. So my mom and I are keeping an eye on this buzzard ahead of us, and in his beak is a huge chunk of carrion. Carrion, the word of the day, means dead decaying meat. Even at that distance, I could see he had bitten off more than he could chew. Pun intended. And as we get closer, he starts flapping his wings. He wouldn't. He might. And he did. I start yelling, Mom is yelling, there is no time to slam on the brakes. And at the last possible second... The buzzard dropped the bloody putrid meat all over the front of our car. Guys, the smell! Words cannot describe the puke factor here. My screams of terror had subsided into that shocked laughter that you sometimes do when you have a near-death experience. Yeah, couple that with violent gagging. Mom, being the responsible adult that she is, immediately pulled into a self-serve car wash, and I pulled out my camera.
In another million years will that happen. Oh my gosh, after that. So, look at where it is. Are you filming it?
So Mom, you want to explain to us what just happened?
We were driving down and a frickin' buzzard flew over the road and was like flying low, and I honestly thought we were going to hit it, and it held a bunch of crap in its beak, and as we drove underneath it, it dropped all of its stuff on top of my car. And Becca said a dirty word.
Well, who wouldn't with this stuff all over the front of the car?
We were late to wherever we were going. Watch for buzzards, kids. I got up this morning and I said to myself, you know what would do wonders for my self-esteem? Showing over 300,000 people my absurdly embarrassing old art from animation school that I probably should have burned by now. Hello, my geeks and peeps, my explainers and entertainers, my little oodle-ollies, Rebecca Parham here. Many people ask me if I went to school for art and animation. Pfft, school? I'm a part of the animated storytelling community on YouTube. You think I went to school? Actually, you'd be right. I did go to school for this. General run through of my college education, go! I graduated high school and went to a local private university to study theater. After an intense year of theater and music classes, I realized I wanted to fulfill my childhood dream of becoming an animator. So I then took a year of nothing but art classes, built up a portfolio, and got accepted into Ringling College of Art and Design. They're kind of known for their animation program. Kind of considered one of the best in the world. Now, at Ringling, at least while I was there, you didn't just jump into animation the first day. No. You had to take a whole bunch of weird art and design classes just to prepare you for the animation program. And I'll be honest, guys, I don't think it was my art skills that got me accepted into that school. I think it was my good grades and theater experience, because I was absolutely not the best drawer in my class. I was actually one of the worst. So that first year and a half of weird art classes, I am more than certain that I made my fair share of terrible art. Cutting to the chase, Ringling is in Florida, and my family used to own a townhouse in Florida for business trips, and sometimes my college stuff would end up there in between school years. Recently, we sold that townhouse, and the current owner sent me back some of my personal items that were left there. So guess what came in the mail for me nearly 4 years after graduation? A big old portfolio case filled with art from my first year and a half of animation school. And guess what we're doing? That's right, we're gonna open up this bad boy and we're gonna try and embarrass the hell out of me. Knock the old ego down a few notches. Official content warning, a lot of this artwork is from my figure drawing class, which is the class that you draw nude models. So if you think you're gonna be a little squeamish looking at some bad but tasteful drawings of nude models, then go ahead and click off. I'll see you in the next video. And yes, I did look up YouTube's community guidelines regarding this, and it's all completely within the artistic/educational parameters. We good. And here it is. This is the box that it was sent in. I haven't opened it. I haven't looked at this art, I want to say in like 6 or 7 years. I only have very vague memories of the art classes that I took at the time, so this is going to be as much of a surprise to me as it is to you guys. Let's get this sucker open! So apparently I had 2 of them in there. I don't remember 2 of them, I only remember the one on top, but hey, the more the merrier. Let's start with you. So we're just gonna take whatever is on top first. Oh, we're gonna start things off with some really awful figure drawing. And this was a homework assignment where you had to take a piece of artwork that already existed and try to recreate it, but it had to have like naked humans in it. Although as you can clearly see, I was a little shy at the time about drawing the bits. We're moving on. Okay, so let's just kind of start pulling a whole bunch out at once. Oh my gosh. Guys, do you even recognize who this is? That's Goofy. Okay, so we had a figure drawing class assignment in which we had to take a popular cartoon character and basically give them a skeleton, like figure out what the skeleton underneath the body would look like. And I just chose Goofy. I had to figure out how exactly that skull would work. Good lord, this is awful. But this is actually a very common practice that a lot of like animation artists do. What did I even get on that? Ooh, I got an A. My teacher was very forgiving. This is a skeleton thing of the Jesus Christ one that I did, the one that I showed you earlier. You see, it's very important to understand the bone structure beneath the skin to really understand how to draw the human body. Okay, I remember my teacher actually like really liking this one because I was really awful in that class. I was really terrible, and the first time I ever got like any sort of praise from my teacher was I think on this one. But just, why did she praise me? This is so bad.
Always have the trouble with the feet.
Oh, I remember this model. She was really cool. She brought her dog with her one day to class, and the dog was just so well behaved and so well trained that they let the dog sit in her lap while we did a gesture of her. So that's really cool. Now what in the world are these things? This was the type of assignment where they gave you like a whole bunch of words and you had to figure out the line or the pattern or the design that best represents that word. Angry. Yeah, okay. Claw marks. Rawr. Oh, here's a winner right here. What does fat look like to 20-year-old Becca? Looks like the Eye of Sauron. Bored, like everybody who's watching this video. Does that represent how you guys are feeling right now? This looks like a really weird game of Mahjong or something. Happy, the feeling millennials never feel. Do you feel that way, guys? No? Good, we're on track. But in all seriousness, this is actually a really good exercise because it helps you better visualize certain descriptive words and really bolsters your creativity a little bit. Block people, because we're all just a bunch of blocks put together. Oh yeah, this girl, this was Halloween day and she was in costume, so we did all of this in her costume. And I think what her costume was, it was like a half woman and a half guy, and she just happened to have like mostly the guy side turned towards me. Oh my gosh, guys. No mouth. This is where it all started, and this is what your hands look like when you're in a figure drawing class. And here's your nightmare fuel for the rest of your days. This was actually a similar exercise to giving a cartoon character a skeleton, only I think this was Stewie Griffin and I had to give him muscles, but like, why did I give him like a more realistic nose and more realistic lips? I don't understand that. But this is another one of those learning exercises where you had to know all of the muscles of the human body so you can better draw the human body. So just important stuff, even if it is really creepy. Oh no, wait, this is the one. This is the one that I got like a lot of praise from my teacher on. This is the one where I finally thought, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm not so awful. Yeah, this one's better than most. It's not good, but it's better than most. Ah, random poses that prove I did not belong at this school. Yay! More really bad gestures, more really bad gestures. P.S. All completely necessary to being a better artist and animator. Okay, if you guys thought that Stewie Griffin thing was nightmare fuel, you ain't seen nothing yet, because the piece de resistance. What was this? I think, look, I even gave it like a leaf. What? Rebecca, you draw the breast, but you don't draw the junk. Okay, oh my gosh. What I remember this to be was another exercise in like muscles and skin, and we had to take somebody else's cartoon character that they chose for the previous assignments and like draw a finished cartoon character over it. And I think this was a picture of Dee Dee from Dexter's Laboratory, and I don't know what I made her into. Like, are these like supposed to be dreadlocks? What? And why is one forearm so much bigger than the other? And what's with these like frog fingers and the frog toes? I have no idea what I was thinking. This is super creepy. I never want to see this again. So now we have this bad boy, and he was heavy. All right, what have we got here? Whoop, these are big books, and ooh, we're going to pull out something colorful. What? So I have a business of art and design minor, and I had to take a lot of business classes, and one of my favorite teachers was the teacher of this class, and she wanted us to do an art project of like what life means to us, and I said, well, life is like a balancing act. Look at that derpy dopey expression. I like the concept because I still believe that life is nothing but a balancing act, but still, this never needs to see the light of day again. Newsprint. Here we go. Yet another example of the failures.
Okay, so this is the point where I found 2 whole sketch pads filled with nothing but bad drawings. Just look at how many I'm flipping through right now. There is over 100 of them, and not a single one is good enough to be in a portfolio. I want to recall an old Walt Stanchfield quote that everybody needs to remember. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. We all have 10,000 bad drawings in us. The sooner we get them out, the better. I'd say that number is higher. Look, I was in one of America's best animation school programs, and I was still getting those bad drawings out. To this day, I am still getting them out. This is what getting better looks like. It is mountains and mountains of ugly, unusable drawings. Out of 100, you may have a couple that are okay. Every professional artist out there has their own mountain range of bad drawings. I get asked for art and animation tips all the time, and this is really the most important insight that I can give you. Practice. Practice more. Practice even more than that. Practice until you fall asleep, face first, into your sketchbook, because that is what you are supposed to do in order to get better. Every bad drawing is a tiny baby step closer to where you want to be. Okay, I know I've been ragging on past Becca pretty hard throughout this entire video, but back then, she was really trying her best. I was really trying my best. Fighting my way through an extraordinarily hard college program surrounded by people who were far better than me. The very definition of intimidating.
I guess my point in all of this is, if a socially awkward theater geek with low self-esteem who was in way over her head can do it, then chances are so can you. Just takes a lot of passion and self-discipline and determination. And maybe some iron-willed stubbornness at times. Keep drawing, all my new artists out there. And thank you so much for tuning in, but now I gotta tune out. Bye! You wanna know one of the weird random things that has helped keep me sane throughout this whole quarantine? Barbershop quartets. Hey, listen, don't pretend like you don't have one of those weird interests that not even your best friends know about. We all have one. I just choose to bring up mine to millions of people. But seriously, barbershop quartets. Hear me out for 2 seconds. It's basically a bunch of the most dad-looking guys pitch perfectly singing parody Disney songs with jokes and the occasional tap dance thrown in, so, you know, it's amazing. These guys in particular are called Main Street, and they're all dapper dans from Disney World. Disney World, street performers, cheap segways. I do believe this means we have a sequel on our hands. Welcome to Disney Street Performers Pick on Me 2. Although I'm probably gonna call the video something different in the title so the algorithm doesn't flag me as for kids. Roll film! When last we left our heroine Rebecca, she was singled out by the citizens of Main Street and made to sing Disney show tunes to a crowd of people. But alas, our young star has landed herself in a new predicament. Now she must face off with the citizens of Hollywood, a group of 1930s and 40s style boulevard urchins who play up the golden age of cinema over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. So back in ye old animation school days, sometimes I had enough time off to go to Disney World. One weekend, I went to Hollywood Studios by myself. When I got there, I headed straight for the Tower of Terror, but on my way, I ran into a street act just getting started. Now, all of these different citizens of Hollywood characters at the park are reoccurring and they all have names. So the subject of today's tale is Mr. Ready Freddy Fiddlesticks. He and another character were doing their set, and I was happily watching because, as I've mentioned before, I love Disney street performers. And Disney street performers love me because they can tell I'll play along. Case in point, in the middle of this performance, the other character started going into this monologue about how Freddy will never work in this town again. And Freddy, acting scared, came over to me and hugged on me for comfort. My performer instincts tell me that this was him testing to see if I was comfortable being part of the bit.
No, she won't file a harassment claim. She reeks of theater kid. And lemons.
For his grand finale, Freddy was gonna do this big trick of juggling hats. He needed to hype up the crowd, so he yelled out,
"Are you all ready to see me do a trick?"
And the crowd cheered back. But then he zeroed in on me and yelled,
"Hey, lady! Are you ready to see me do a trick?"
He then purposefully dropped a hat and bent down seductively, showing me his hams. The audience lost it, of course, a veritable roar of laughter. And of course, I was playing along, getting all flustered and batting my eyes. And when the act finally ended, Freddy and his friend jumped into their jalopy and started rolling away, with Freddy pointing at me, giving me the call me signal. How delightful, Disney magic, 10 out of 10. But it doesn't end there. After the act was over, I got in line for the Tower of Terror. Back then, I always carried around a sketchbook and pencils with me, so as I was waiting, I was trying to draw Ready Freddy Fiddlesticks from memory. And I was getting a little bit frustrated because I couldn't quite remember the details of his costume, but I made my half-finished sketch and rode the ride. When I got off, however, you'll never guess who was outside doing a bit with two new characters. It's Freddy! Golly, what luck! I'll be able to finish my sketch! Now, let me offer you some advice about not getting picked on by street performers. If you don't want to be part of the act, don't do something that sets you apart from everybody else in the crowd. Like drawing. Because as I stood there innocently finishing up my sketch, unbeknownst to me, one of the other characters had snuck up behind me and was watching over my shoulder. Hey, Mac, you think you could dangle 2 steps over? You're blocking the light.
Hey, Mr. Vanderbilt! I know something! This girl is drawing Freddy!
Well, that's the fastest a man has ever moved in my direction. While Freddy stood there next to me oogling over this very mediocre drawing of himself, the third actor, playing a big important movie producer, came over as well. He reached for the sketchbook, but mid-grab, he at least had the wisdom to ask me under his breath, "May I show this?" And as the book was leaving my hands, all I had time to quietly say was, "Don't turn the page. Let's just say that if he did, this innocent young crowd of Disney-going children would be getting an early art school education in figure drawing, also known as artistic nudes. And honey, at that point, he'd lose his job and I'd have to rip up my Disney animation application, because I just know I'd be sitting in that interview and the recruiter would say, "Our records indicate that you flashed naked people drawings to a bunch of kids while visiting Hollywood studios 4 years ago?" No, you're thinking of the crazy Rebecca Parham that makes YouTube videos. Thankfully, he heard me because he just held up the page with Freddy's drawing on it. There were some oohs and ahs from the crowd, but in that moment, all I remember thinking was, man, I wish I was a better drawer. The actor gave me back the sketchbook, reached into his coat pocket, said, very good, well done," and handed me a fake $100 bill. A shame it wasn't real. Would have been able to afford a soda. Freddy was still drooling over the drawing, so I asked him to sign it, and he was thrilled to do so. Here is the actual sketchbook from that day. Ooh, this is an old one. And here is the drawing of Ready Freddy Fiddlesticks. There's his signature, and here's the fake $100 bill that the Disney actor gave me. I wouldn't call this a particularly good drawing by professional artist standards, but I'll never forget how happy it made Freddy. It was a good reminder that the little things can matter a lot to people, and you should never underestimate the little things you can do. Well, that's all I got for you, explainers and entertainers. Thank you so much for tuning in, but now I gotta tune out. So long! Boop. What? Slumber parties. When I was a kid, slumber parties were marketed to us like these sacred rituals of girlhood. A strange and mysterious rite of passage that all girls do. If there was a cartoon on TV that featured girls, there would always be a slumber party episode. And as a kid, I was fascinated by the concept. This Hollywood portrayal of what girls do when they band together in the dead of night. And don't get me wrong, I saw the hyper-girliness of it all. Makeovers, boys, an excessive amount of giggling. But that was just the surface level. There was something else between the lines that felt mischievous. Wicked, even. But it wasn't really until adulthood that I finally figured out why. Tell me something. When you think of those time-honored traditional slumber party activities, which ones come to mind? Perhaps the game where you stand in front of a mirror and summon an evil spirit?
Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
Or is it the eloquent folding of paper to reveal the future?
And the fortune teller says,
yes, you will be an author. Maybe it's the homemade potions you put on your face to make yourself more beautiful.
and then a spoonful of honey and a dash of ginger.
Or perhaps it's performing levitation.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Now, doesn't all of this sound like witchcraft? I am pretty much convinced there's a weird parallel between slumber parties and witch gatherings. To me, there's just a few too many occult themes hidden amongst the hair braiding and the pillow fights. Ghost, for example. They tend to come up as a common theme at slumber parties, sometimes as ghost stories or scary movies. Now, my regulars on this channel know that I have an affinity for the idea of spectrals and spirits, but my mega fans know that there's one spooky device that I will not touch, and that would be a Ouija board. You won't find me playing with one of these things, even as commonplace as they are at slumber parties.
Is there someone here with us?
Nothing more girly than opening up a door to the spirit world and provoking whatever's on the other side. Bloody Mary is a very popular way of doing this too. Most of us have heard of this classic childhood test of courage. It has many variations, but the basic idea is this. You get yourself a good old candle or flashlight, you stand in front of a mirror in the dark, you say Bloody Mary 3 times, and bada bing bada boom, you got yourself a vengeful spirit in the mirror that may or may not kill you. Fun for the whole family. Now, if you actually see something in the mirror, what's most likely happening is a thing called pareidolia, where your brain tries to fill in the gaps when given a vague stimulus. It's hard to see in the dim lighting, so your brain tries to piece together something familiar. It's why people see faces in potato chips, and why that cloud looks like a duck. We girls also like to practice our fair share of fortune-telling at slumber parties. We have many devices to do so. Paper fortune tellers, that we used to call cootie catchers when I was a kid, magic 8 balls, the game MASH, which, if you didn't know, stands for mansion, apartment, shack, or house, and even the more modern game of Charlie Charlie is a take on a pretty old Spanish paper and pencil game called Juego de la Lapicera, also played by generations of girls trying to predict the future. Though I fully admit that despite my best efforts as a kid, I don't have much clairvoyance. Never really saw the whole single workaholic YouTuber thing coming. Speaking of creepy old traditions meant for kids, I know most of us internet-dwelling mole people are aware of the supposedly dark origins of archaic rhymes like Ring Around the Rosie and Mary Mary Quite Contrary. But my personal favorite straight up slaps you in the face with brutality. No pocket full of posies poetic imagery here. I'm talking about the Lizzie Borden skip rope rhyme.
Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, gave her father 41.
Now let's just contextualize this for a moment here. This would be like somebody making up a cheery little kid song about the Manson murders. And they say we're the twisted generation. So I can't make a video about the creepy things little girls do without mentioning our iconic toy. The doll. You know, the one toy that has documented cases of demonic possession. And who else has dolls? Witches. Witches have been using dolls called poppets for centuries. They're made of a lot of natural materials like carved root, potatoes, cloth, branches, and they're used to cast spells on people. Now, admittedly, little girls at slumber parties don't normally use their dolls for the dark arts. But these things do have a tendency to make us feel uneasy sometimes, especially when they're in groups. And I think a lot of that has to do with the uncanny valley, in which an observer is more repulsed by an inanimate object the closer it resembles a human being. Just bear in mind, that's what little girls have been raised on for centuries. The last occult slumber party game that I want to talk about is one that I never actually got to do. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. This is the game where you supposedly make a member of your witch party levitate off the ground. One girl lies on her back while everyone else gathers around and puts 1 or 2 fingers from each hand underneath her. Everyone chants light as a feather, stiff as a board several times and then counts to 3. And on 3, everyone is able to lift her up relatively effortlessly with just their fingers, as though she were practically weightless. But do be careful with this spell, young witches. In the event you should drop your levitating friend, your powers won't be advanced enough to heal a fractured spine. Now, what's actually happening in this circumstance is simple science. With everyone lifting on 3, the weight is evenly distributed, and fingers are a lot stronger than we give them credit for. Myth busted. I think I've made a pretty good case for the idea that we ladies have all secretly been raised as witches. But you know what? We live in modern times. Everyone can be witches and have whatever kind of slumber party they want. Play the spooky witch games or have a last gamer standing smash tournament, discuss anime, work on a fursuit. Who cares? No rules! Just what makes you and your friends happy as long as no one's getting hurt. For real, I don't want to get a letter from a lawyer because one of you dropped someone playing light as a feather, got it? Lawyers use some real dark magic. Anyways, my geeks and creeps, thank you so much for tuning in, but now I gotta tune out. Bye! I went to VidCon and cool things happened and I'm terrible at taking pictures, so I made an animation instead because let's face it, cartoons are just better. So here are some of my favorite highlights from my trip to VidCon 2018. Hey, so there was a lot that happened this year. Too much, in fact, to cram into one video. I took a poll and the majority of you said you wanted a 2-part special, so that's what we're doing. Also, I had to structure the video differently this year to get everything in, so I'm sorry to all of my lightning round fans. We're still gonna have fun, so here we go, my first 2-parter VidCon recap. Day 1. My brother David and I arrived on Wednesday and immediately went to lunch with Danebo and the Annoying Orange Gang. It was great to see them all again, but Dane was starting to feel a little blue that he wasn't going to VidCon this year. I kept telling him he could still buy a ticket, but he just shrugged and said, nah. We said goodbye to the Annoying Orange Gang and then later went over to the Cheesecake Factory to have dinner with James, Adam, and Ryder. Everyone but me and David was late! Tisk tisk, this won't do it all. So yet again, I put our names in for the table. I'm still so helpful! They all eventually arrived and we sat down for dinner. At the table, Ryder exploded his soda everywhere and James let me see a copy of his new book. After dinner, we all wanted to see The Incredibles 2. I was sitting in the theater beforehand while the guys were out getting us all slushies, and that's when Dane texted me and said he'd bitten the bullet and was gonna get a ticket for VidCon. And I was so happy! I then watched The Incredibles 2 sitting between James and Adam, which was hilarious because both of them have the best reactions ever. And afterwards, we all geeked out about the animation and lighting. Day 2! The second day, the plan was to meet as many of you as possible and then go to the big animation community lunch being put on by Alex Clark and his animators. David and I walked around the expo hall all morning meeting you guys, specifically getting caught up about an hour and a half at Jaden's booth. Later, while I was in the main hallway talking to a fan, I got blindsided by Adam and a giant wave of people following him. But it turns out it was the animation community, or at least most of them. We all talked for a bit and then Ryder texted me to come find him. I was power walking over to him when a girl in the crowd did a big ol' lateral slide in front of me to block my path. Apparently I was being a dumb butt that day because I didn't recognize her at first and I thought she was a fan. She gave me a weird look and showed me her badge. It was Tabs. I'm sorry. She had Chili Panda and Billy But Better in tow, so we all went back into the expo hall to catch up with the rest of the animation community, like Cypher Den and Ginger Pale. We were all gathered together in front of the Nickelodeon booth, so we began to draw a bit of a crowd. While I was happily meeting fans, a girl came up to me wearing an employee badge and an earpiece. Uh-oh. Hi, I'm Kristen with VidCon. Are we in trouble? You're not in trouble yet, but we have called security. Uh-oh. We can either set up a space off to the side for you all to do a meet and greet, or we have to escort you out of here. Well, as it turns out, it was almost time for us to go to our big animation lunch anyway, so we ended up getting escorted out by security. We kinda got kicked out of the expo hall. In a nice way. Outside, as we were all calling Lyfts and Ubers to get to the restaurant, Dane texted me to wait for him because he finally got his badge and wanted to go with me to the lunch. Aw yeah, just gonna casually bring a YouTube legend with me. No biggie. We got to the restaurant and so many animators were there. Rebecca-chan, Sugar, Dom, Life Noggin, Ginger Pale, Cypherton, Tabs, Chili Panda, everyone! Here's a picture! Look how cool we are! When it was time to go, David, Dane, and I got into an Uber. I was in the front seat with the window rolled down, but Alex wanted one last goodbye before I left. He reached into the car window to give me a hug, and I awkwardly reached out to return it. But in doing so, I hit the side of his face with my hand kinda hard. I accidentally punched Alex Clark in the face. He tweeted about it later. That night was the YouTube party, and this year I had an invitation. Dane also had an invite thanks to iJustine, so we went together. It was very loud, and by the end of the night, it was super crowded, but I did meet some cool people. I met Catherine, who was Markiplier's editor and is now the Crank Gameplays editor. She and I talked like we were old friends, but we were literally screaming in each other's faces because it was so loud. And I finally met Matt, Pat, and Steph. I introduced myself, and their eyes lit up. They said they already knew so much about me because Ryder told them everything. Thanks, Ryder. And now Matt follows me on Twitter. They were both so cool. Day 3! After a morning of walking around the expo hall and meeting more of you, I had a business meeting over at the hotel where all the YouTubers were staying at, and then I was going to the animation community meetup event at 2:30. After the business meeting, David and I were riding on a shuttle back to the convention center at about 12:45 when I got a text from Ryder. He said he was already at the animation community meetup, the room had reached capacity and they'd closed the doors, and there was a line forming outside. He basically said, "You gotta get here now!" So I rushed over to the meetup room and sure enough, they'd closed the doors and there was a line outside. Oscar Animates, who arranged the whole event with VidCon, was talking to the lady in charge and I tried to tell her I needed to get into that room. Oscar was like, "Yeah, let her in, she's one of the animators." So they begrudgingly opened the door for me. I took 2 steps into that room and got tackled on both sides and a crowd started forming around me. Moz rushed up to me and said, "Go sit next to Ryder." Okay. I had no idea what was going on. Apparently this casual meetup in a room meant for only 80 people had turned into a very large signing event. Everyone had set up tables along the perimeter of the room where the animators would sit and a line of people would go by and get photos and signatures. We started the event an hour early, and as we met people and signed things, the line outside kept getting longer and longer. At one point, David went outside and took some footage of this line. It was insane. Periodically, Moz, the unofficial MC of the whole event, thank you so much Moz for being responsible, would get on a mic and tell us to hurry up and that we only had 30 seconds with each person. At the end of this event that we started an hour early, we got through 500 people and had to turn away 1,500. We were blown away. Oh my gosh, thank you to everyone who waited in that line, and we are so sorry that so many of you didn't get to see us. No one was expecting that kind of turnout. It was incredible, and you guys made us feel so loved and supported. Also, the whole room of animators had to be escorted out the back by security. Later that night was the Studio 71 party. Ryder and I had invites, and I got a wristband for David too. We stayed there for about an hour and a half, but David and I were just so exhausted and our feet hurt and there wasn't anyone there that we knew, so we kinda got bored and decided to leave. Although, I did get to talk to Anthony Padilla and Pat from Life Noggin on the way out. Not a total loss. Though the real highlight of the night was when we were standing in line to get in, a little girl who was also in line for the party recognized me and asked for a picture. That was pretty cool. Alright, so that should do it for the first half of this VidCon recap. It feels really weird making this into 2 videos. But hey, come back for the thrilling conclusion to hear the story of being backstage at the infamous Animation Squad Q&A panel. Thank you for tuning in, explainers, and I'll be right back.